Hello, friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Rowell. All right, it's the second day of my Folsom trip. I spent most of yesterday kind of chauffeuring my mom about doing some of the daily things that she needs to get done, and today it's all about the vlogs. Now, one of the things that this area is most famous for is the California Gold Rush. In 1848 in Sutter's Mill, they discovered gold for the first time, and that turned California into the gold rush state. Today we are going to go visit something called the Goldbug Mine, where there was an active gold mine for many years, and right now it's just they do tours, and there's a tour into the mine and all sorts of fun stuff, and we're going to go check that out. So let's go to the Goldbug Mine. Here we are. All right, here we go. Over there looks like they let you do some mining for gold if you want, so we may try doing that. Alright, so they got this app that you download, and apparently it'll give you an audio guided tour all the way through the facility, so some of the voices you're going to hear are going to be from the app.
Come on, step to the portal and hold a bit while you get ready to see the Goldbug Mine. Now I know you can't see me or that harmonica player either. That's because we're ghosts. That's right. Some folks call me the ghost of the Goldbug. Do you notice the support timbers around you? This timbering is used to support softer ground in mines and is as authentic as it gets. We'll explain more about it later. So keep on moving along to the first place that I want to show you. Okay, here we are. Well, the first thing I want to tell you is that we ain't in a cave. Miners called it a drift or attic. A cave is more nature-made. Take a look around. You can see some quartz veins overhead. It's thin white streaks of rock that go up over our heads. Up here, quartz is what gold miners look for because that's where the gold is, mixed in with the quartz. We like to call quartz the mother of gold. Keep looking up here. A vertical opening like this where the quartz was contained is called a stope. It's 20 feet up here, and they did all their work standing on timbers that used to be between the walls. I'll explain more about that later. You might want to think about how they dug this here stope and the drift itself. Well, I'll tell you now, it was a tough job, let me tell you. But when you are following a promising quartz vein, you don't mind so much. Have you noticed yet how that water turns the white quartz vein that brown color? It's not the water that stains the quartz. It's the iron pyrite and magnetite dissolved in it. The water comes and goes throughout the years, but that rust stain is there forever. We miners say gold rides an iron horse, because when we see that brown color, we know we've got a good chance of finding gold. When the quartz rock was once molten way down under the surface of the earth, the gold sometimes got mixed in with it, and then it was all forced up through the slate. Then everything cooled off, and when miners like me came along, millions and millions of years later, well, it was just like somebody planned the whole deal. Here at signpost number 4 is a remarkable formation that shows just how powerful Mother Nature is. Look at the arch-shaped formation. See the layers of rock? Jay calls it Metamorphic Rock. According to Jake, those layered strips of rock were once the bed on an ancient lagoon. Millions and millions of years ago, unbelievably strong forces started moving stuff around here. Things like strong earthquakes and such lasted for days and lifted the whole seabed up until the layers were vertical. Now look above the support timbers, and right overhead there is a real large stope. It probably goes up 25 feet or more. They was following a series of gold-bearing quartz veins that looked like the branches on a tree. It started right here at the level of this drift and kept going up and spreading out. It must have really been something to see the gold that was here. Do you see that large wooden log wedged between the walls? Us miners called it a stole. We use stoles built to support the rock and to stand on. Now I'm going to tell you something about hard rock mining. What you hear is men drilling holes the old-time way. Double jack, 2 guys working together. One holds the drill, or steel as they called it, against the rock face of the drift. The other swings that double jack, or sledge, against the end of the steel. This drives the point of the steel into the rock. After each hit, the guy holding the steel gives it a quarter turn. It takes a while, but you end up with a hole about 3 feet or so deep and as big around as a 50-cent piece. Take a look. You might see a hole or two. You probably already figured out why they're drilling these holes. Yes, sir, that's right. That is where they put the explosive. But we'll talk about that later. You probably noticed, too, that the adit takes a turn to the left here. That now becomes what is called a crosscut. They had to make a big decision right here because the gold-bearing quartz vein had played out. They decided that they would likely hit another vein if they went this way, so they started drilling and blasting this crosscut to the next vein structure. Oh, by the way, as we walk on, look above to your right. Jake calls that white stuff talc schist, and where it meets the slate, a contact line.
All right, so it appears there's a little glitch in the program on this one here. And the number 9 program seems to play the number 8 audio, so looks like what we got here is a mine car. And so this is probably, remember they mentioned earlier in the video that we had it easy because we just had to walk on the wood planks, but that were originally mine cars that came through here. So you're, in addition to having to lower your head, you also had to, mine these tracks and not trip over all this. So I'm guessing at this point they're showing a little bit more what it was like. Now I'm sure that it wasn't all filled in with wood like this either. It was probably typical, cross beams like you think of on a railroad track. And so, yeah, that would have been something you had to, in addition to everything else you had to deal with in here, having to deal with that kind of thing. So, yeah, I guess that's one of the original mine cars. You blast it, you have manual labor loaded into the cars, and then you push it down the hill. There's some sort of something that they've kept there. I don't know what that is, but kind of looks like that quartz they were talking about. There's another piece there. Get the camera out of the way here.
Look at those wires in the heading at the end of the drift. They represent fuses ready for a round of explosives to be detonated to extend this mine a few more feet. They use dynamite for the explosive. The fuses were cut to the proper length for timing and attached to the dynamite sticks. The sticks were tamped into the drilled holes in the rock like I talked about drilling earlier, and the holes were capped with damp drill cuttings, and it would look like you see here. That's the bell signal for ready to blast, or they'd hear the blaster yell, "Fire in the hole." The fuse were lit. Then after the smoke and gases cleared, if done right, they'd see an adit about 3 feet longer. That would also be a nice pile of rock and ore for them to clean up. This material will be mucked into the waiting ore car you see. It was then taken by the ore car to the outside. That sign by the ore car tells you most everything you need to know about it, except what a chore it was to move that thing down a track to the outside loaded with rock. The waste rock going to the dump pile outside the portal to the left, and the ore placed in a wagon and taken to the stamp mill. Now the stamp mill crushed the quartz into fine powder. That powder got processed with water and quicksilver. Quicksilver, or mercury as some folks call it, is funny stuff. It attracts gold like a magnet. Oh, you'll learn more about this at the stamp mill. A downright fascinating part of your visit to the Goldbug Mine. Well, as you can see, we've reached the end of the mine. You might be wondering why they didn't keep going on. One reason, that it is probably the main one, 1942 came along, and with it, World War II. Mining gold was declared non-essential and not allowed in most cases like here. When the war ended, the economy and job market was expanding, and it was easier to get a good paying job. So they never came back here again.
All right, so we're going to turn around and head back. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep the camera running the entire time we walk back so you kind of get the experience of the whole thing. One of the things I've noticed about that is there's a lot of moisture in here. There's parts where there's just water dripping from the ceiling. Here's a spot up here on the ground. You can see it's wet, so there's obviously water coming down there. Yeah, so you can see the water dripping here. Sorry, I gotta stop camera every once in a while because I don't have exclusive access to this thing. Another very moist area. Yeah, they made us wear a hard hat in there, so that was actually very useful because the truth is I was like slouching the whole time when I was walking through there. This definitely is not made for somebody my height. I probably had to, like I said, slouch down probably about a foot in order to not bump my head. And even then, I bumped it a few times. I was glad I had the helmet. But anyway, let's go on to the next part and I'll show you what's there. All right, here they get kind of an example of some of the things that are found in during mining process. They say this isn't necessarily all stuff that's from this particular mine, but stuff that's sometimes found. And they've got some fossils over there, and here. That's called agate. Copper ore, so that can be valuable too. Sandstone. Look at the metamorphization that's happened there. All the twisting of the layers. Remember, all that stuff was once flat, and just geological pressures twisted them into that shape. Quartz. That's where they often say they find a lot of gold is kind of mixed in with the quartz, so that's important. Pumice. That's basically volcanic ash that's been compressed into a rock. And some of the tools, you gotta remember this was the 1800s, so we didn't have, hydraulics and stuff like that. You had hand picks and stuff like that. You were chopping through rock. Crazy. Gee, I wonder if he's hunting for gold. That's not something you see every day. It's a wild turkey. Alright, so there's more stuff up the hill. There's a blacksmith shop, the stamp mill, the mining display, Spring Hill Trail, and more parking. I'm just going to walk up there because given a chance I'll always do that. I'm probably not going to hit the Spring Hill Trail, but we'll look at the other three places. Let's go. I was noticing when I drove in here, there's a lot of volunteers down the hill kind of working on the entrance to those places. Some sort of a charity thing, I guess. So if you hear a bunch of chainsaws and that kind of stuff in the background, that's why. I love the smell of pine trees. Don't get that a lot in Texas. Alright, this is a early means of breaking up the gold-bearing ore and extracting the gold itself. Basically what this thing did is there was this center pole here, right here, and then this thing goes out here, and what they would do is they'd either use people or sometimes animals to push or pull this thing around, and as the thing rotated, it dragged these stones around the center here. And what would happen is any of the gold-bearing ore would eventually get smashed into powder, with the stones, and then once the stones had smashed it into powder, you use mercury, because mercury, quicksilver at the time, kind of acts like a gold magnet and drags it all into one spot. So you can remove that, evaporate the mercury, and have your and extract your gold. This was used up to about 500 years ago, and they've got other ways of doing this now. All right, this is called a hydraulic mining monitor. Basically, it's a giant water cannon that sprays against the side of a mountain and basically just erodes away the whole mountain. And you collect the solids in a sluice and separate the gold this way. Now, one of the downsides of this is this was incredibly environmentally insensitive, to put it lightly. This literally washed away mountains and caused damage downstream, because all that sediment had to go somewhere. It was eventually banned in 1884, but then re-allowed again in 1893 on more of a limited basis, and based on them having to take precautions to capture the material downstream. This thing's called a stamp mill. This is another means of extracting the gold from the ore. Basically what happens on this is the ore was placed in this box here, and then this thing went up and down and just basically stamped on it and crushed it all into a powder, and then it kind of came out into one of these little gates out here where it was captured. And I think what they did is they put the raw ore in here, and the powdered refined ore would come out, well, not refined, but powdered ore would come out here, at which point they could use traditional methods of extracting the gold from the powder. Look at the date on this thing, December 17th, 1878. Okay, this is a shaker table. Basically, this thing simulates the motions of somebody who's panning for gold. See, the premise behind panning for gold is that the gold is heavier than all the other minerals that you're pulling out of the river, or out of whatever your source is. And so you can use water and wash away, and if you're careful, you can get enough movement in the water to wash away the lighter sands and other stuff that isn't as heavy as the gold, and the gold stays there. Well, this is kind of an industrial scale version of it, and basically it simulated the motions of someone panning for gold, and at the end of the day they would take all the gold that they found out of here, separate it with the quicksilver once again, and that's how they would retrieve all this. All right, let's go up and see this. So the blacksmith is making another dinner chime like this. He was saying he's not really a fan of the rebar. He actually rang it for me. It's got a nice tone to it, but he wants to make one a little bit more fancy, so that's what he's working on now. All right.
Whereabouts are you visiting from?
I'm from Waco, Texas.
Oh, okay.
So,
from Waco.
Yeah.
Awesome. We visited there. I went to a military reunion there
Oh
a
yeah?
couple of years ago, and we visited that Heritage Village thing outside.
Yeah, I know where that is, yeah.
I was so impressed with that place.
Oh yeah, that was, yeah, I've been there. It's a lot of fun.
I liked their mesquite furniture they had in there.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
In fact, I thought I saw online that they had a blacksmith class back there that went for maybe a week or so.
Yeah, there was that. I went during, they had a sorghum festival.
Okay.
And it was they were harvesting sorghum that day, and they had a guy on the property that was doing blacksmithing. In fact, a whole bunch of people. They were letting you try it, and
yeah, it's a lot of fun. got hooked in it. I had a need for some old hardware that you can't go out and buy anywhere.
Uh-huh.
Came up here asking the blacksmith, hey, can you make this for me? And he's like, well, I need volunteers, because before the pandemic he had like 19 volunteers working.
Oh, wow.
Then after the pandemic he was down to 2.
Wow.
And then, so I started, and I guess I'm number 3.
You're number 3, all right. All right, so this is one of the machines that was used to kind of mass produce, grind some of this ore and collect all the gold. Basically what happened is this big turn wheel spun here, which caused these things here to rotate around. And what they would do is as they'd go around, they'd lift these big center pieces up, and then when it got to a certain point, it would drop it. And 500 pounds each would pound the ore down here into a powder. In fact, he was showing me the powder. That's what the powder looks like right there. And it would all come out here, and then they would separate the gold with the quicksilver, which we talked about a little earlier, and they also put copper in there, because I guess the gold sticks to the quicksilver and the quicksilver sticks to the copper. And so they remove all of that. They've got it all into a sluice there. They remove all of the quicksilver, and they say they recycle about 99.5% of it. So it goes right back into the system. And then they'd have just that, what's left over is the gold and the copper, and they would smelt that and separate the gold from the copper and pour the gold into the bars. And I guess the basic ore came down the chutes here, went into here, and then these are the hammers that pulverized it into that dust. Amazing, huh? So I was talking about how this thing moves, and he says, oh yeah, we got a working scale model of this thing down here. So I heard this thing down the hill when I was exploring down there. I heard it making a bunch of noise, so.
Okay, you want me to run?
Yes, please. So one of the things I learned about this is this one here, the center wheel is only running at 20 RPM. The real one up there ran about 90 RPM. And so it was just a loud roar in here, as opposed to this one. You could hear the actual impacts on this. That one, when it was running at full speed, it was, like I said, it's just a roar. Now, another things he was saying is that this center wheel here, they always had to kind of make it out of wood, because if they made it out of metal, eventually metal fatigue would just cause the thing to shatter. And that was just because there's that much force out of that. So you can see that one's made out of wood. And he was saying that one too is made out of wood. So I'm actually going to run upstairs. I want to look at that. Oh yeah, look at that. The center thing here, that looks like that's made of metal. Maybe not. But yeah, this definitely is made out of wood. The point being, the wood flexes a little bit more than the metal does. And so it holds up better to the impacts. And it isn't, the hammers don't go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1, 3, 2, 4. And I guess that's supposedly, that pattern minimizes some of the stress that would come from all of that force going on. But look at that thing. Still can't believe how big that thing is. So they got different things up here to kind of simulate the weight of different minerals. This is actually tungsten, but they say that it has the same weight as gold. And this little ingot, weighs a couple pounds. That thing's heavy. And this is aluminum, and I guess this kind of simulates the weight of silver. And then this thing's just made out of wood, but this is what a typical gold bar would be, or gold brick would be poured into. And this weighed, what, 36 pounds, you said?
38.
38 pounds, so yeah, that's that would, you wouldn't want to carry that many of those. Can't imagine carrying that around as currency. All right, they got this map of the U.S. here, where if you don't see a pin in from your city, that you can put a push pin in about where you've come from. So I put that one right there. Let's get it to focus for us. There we go. Now you can see Waco. Waco is represented now. All right, we're gonna head our way back up the hill and let's see how our blacksmith friend has done with his dinner chimes. It's funny, the smell coming off of the blacksmith mill smells like spent fireworks. I'm guessing it's probably the same stuff. I think it's probably like magnesium or something like that. Looking around here, and I noticed these things, and these are the same kind of little hammer things that they're using to pound the ore in that machine down there. It's a trip they're using them here in this way. Checking his angles here. All right, well, I think we're kind of wrapping this one up. This was really interesting. It was a lot of fun to see all this stuff. I had been to a mine here many years ago with my brother-in-law and his family, and it was a mine where you went deep into the ground, and there was like a tram ride that took you to the bottom. And I've been trying to figure out where that was because I wanted to do it again. And I started talking to people here about it. And they were mentioning that there used to be a mine that you could literally take a tram ride into the ground, which is what I remember. But it closed up a few years ago because I guess the whole thing got flooded out. You can go see it now, but you don't get to go down in it anymore, which was kind of the fun thing. We went like a mile underground, and then we got out and we walked around in there, and I remember that was a lot of fun. And like I said, I've been trying to find that because that was the one I actually wanted to take you to today. I found out it was called the Empire Mine, and like I said, they got flooded out, so no more Empire Mine tours. So that would have been fun to do it, but I'm just going to have to live with my memories. Now, I did say something maybe about going and doing some actual mining for gold or panning for gold. They had a little section to do that, but it looks like it's more geared towards kids, and I think it's just the same sand that's in there that you just mine for, pan for the same gold. I don't think they're putting fresh sand in there or anything like that, so I don't think it's one of those things where you get to mine for gold and then take your gold home with you. So I probably won't do that. That seems geared more towards kids. So I think that's probably the end of this video for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was really exciting for me. It was fun to go down into that mine and to bring you along with us and, see some of the techniques that they use for, converting all that raw ore into gold, from the small scale to the large scale. And seeing the blacksmith, that was really kind of fun. I knew a little bit about that, but you don't really get a lot of chance to see that. And it was kind of fun that the guy was recognized that Heritage Village place from Waco, because he said he'd been there and seen the blacksmith display there. So that was actually kind of cool. I learned a lot from him, and these guys are all a wealth of information. I guess they're just all volunteers up here. So this was a lot of fun. I'm glad I came. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night. So as we're heading down the hill that contained the mine here, you gotta wonder if there was enough mine to be worth being mined in that one little section of the hill. You gotta wonder how much gold there still is in these hills. All you gotta do is find some other vein and follow it down, and it could be another mother lode.